FP3, round 13 of 22 in this Formula One season in 2021, and we return to Zandvoort for the first time since 1985. An excellent day of action on Friday. What does Saturday hold in store around this 2.64 mile track? It's relentless for the drivers. Undulations throughout every single metre of this track, barely a straight line, but there are two DRS zones. Elevation only 8.9 metres, but it is up and down all the way through the lap, and into Tarzan we go in 1977. The first corner, this is Mario Andretti trying to take the lead from James Hunt. Hunt would crash out, Andretti continue on until lap 14 when his engine blew up. 1985, it was a McLaren 1-2. Nicky Lauda with his final F1 win ahead of Alain Prost, reversing the positions from the previous year. So McLaren go into the Dutch Grand Prix looking for a hat-trick of 1-2s. What can they come up with? C3, C2, C1 are the tyres. It's the hardest tyre in the Pirelli range, and there we see them on the banking, the 19-degree banking around the final corner. We are by the seaside, as you can see, the North Sea. Opportunities for surfers, for sunbathers, although it is a little on the chilly side at 16 degrees at the moment. But for lovers of Formula One cars around old school circuits, there are opportunities around every single one of the 14 corners, Jensen Button. We loved seeing the cars on the track yesterday, but it starts to get a bit more serious today.
It does, but look at that circuit. It's absolutely stunning, isn't it? Built into the landscape, not flattened and built. So, no, wonderful. And look at them all coming in, the fans to watch some action today. But no, beautiful day for it. And yes, as you said, a lot more serious today. Yeah. FP3 is an important session before they get into qualifying, and then we can really see what these cars can do around the track.
It's got the feel of an open golf championship, hasn't it, really, here? Temporary grandstands, flags fluttering in the sea breeze, mass crowds coming to the sand dunes for the afternoon. But it's driving of a different kind that we're interested in. Around a circuit, look, you know well from your days in the junior formula, the drivers, bar Yuki Tsunoda, who's the only one who's never driven it before, know it very well. But in a Formula One car, it's a very different proposition.
I'm guessing. I mean, I've never driven an F1 car here. I drove an F3 and it felt quick. You know, it felt seriously quick in an F3 car. So, yeah, you know, I wish I was able to drive an F1 car around here. But drivers saying it's very physical, very tough on the neck. Yeah. There's not much rest out there. You've got the home straight, but it's the pit straight, but it's pretty short in an F1 car. But yeah, great track, and really looking forward to, as I said, these cars on the limit in qualifying, and seeing how these drivers get out the car, seeing the smiles on their faces, hopefully.
We have no idea how qualifying is going to go, but we're thinking traffic could be an issue. They've solved the traffic problem getting into the circuit, and well done to the promoters and the organisers here, because the traffic carnage that was predicted has not materialised. Lots of people coming in by train, by bike, by park and ride schemes throughout Holland. It's been a super traffic management scheme, but traffic on the circuit is going to be a huge issue.
Yeah, it's a short track. Yeah. It really is. And, it's very undulating, so there's a lot of blind crests, a lot of blind corners, and very difficult to see cars in front. And also when you're in front, seeing cars catch you from behind.
And here's Robert Kubica, who came here this weekend thinking, I'm just going to enjoy the atmosphere at the Dutch Grand Prix. 3 times we've seen Robert this season in FP1, but he's now going to be going out for FP3 for the first time since Abu Dhabi 2019, standing in for Kimi Räikkönen, who is showing no symptoms of COVID but has tested positive for COVID, and he will miss the rest of this race weekend. Max Verstappen has been to see the stewards this morning. No official confirmation as yet as to the outcome, but our understanding is that Max is in the clear. The overtaking under red flag situation that Anthony Davidson was showing on the Skypad, the stewards have decided that is not worthy of a penalty, which will go down very well with the crowd here. And I think the rest of us as well, because we want to see the battle between Max and Lewis resume in earnest, maybe side by side, come the race tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely. It's not been an easy weekend for anyone, really. There's been a lot of red flags. Obviously, Lewis with his issue. I still don't know the decision, but when you're coming up on a car sort of 100 miles an hour quicker than it, it's very difficult to slow the thing down, even if you get a red light on the dash. But getting back to Robert, you know, an amazing talent. We raced together for years in F1. Had his horrific accident, but he's back again, and he's racing again in a Formula 1 car. So this is probably the most difficult circuit he could be driving on. You know, we all know that it's not so easy for him with one of his arms, and it doesn't have as much strength in it as a normal arm. But he will give it his all this weekend, and I think it's great for him to be back in F1 just on the most physical circuit. But you know, fair play to him getting out there.
It's the second comeback for Robert Kubica, and the fourth team that he would have raced for in Formula One after his days, of course, at BMW and Williams as well. Who was the last team that he was driving for in Formula One? Now it's Alfa Romeo for this weekend as the two Mercedes come out as well, and Nikita Mazepin, Mick Schumacher and Yuki Tsunoda also out onto the track. And let's keep our fingers crossed we don't get a red flag in this session. We had one yesterday and we had two in the second session, so make it 3 in total for yesterday.
Yeah, this is the very early start for the Mercedes team with Lewis, but as you can imagine, missing out on FP2, it's a must really to make sure they don't have any more gremlins, and they can hopefully do a bit of a longer run plan today.
Right, official confirmation from the stewards' room. Our understanding was there was no further action to be taken with Max Verstappen. That has been confirmed by the stewards now, who say that is their conclusion that Max Verstappen took every reasonable action to comply with the regulations, in that he immediately reduced speed in a safe manner at the earliest opportunity upon the first indication of the red flag, even before a red flag or red light panel was visible to him, and that satisfies the requirements of Article 2.5.4.1b of Appendix H of the International Sporting Code. Anthony, you did it, covered it beautifully on the Sky Pad. It looks, I think it's one of those VAR football decisions. It looks a lot worse in slow motion than it did in real time.
Well, yeah, that's why I paused it and then played it at full speed, just to show the difference in speed between the two cars. I mean, it's physically impossible, and all three of us were chatting about it in the office pool, going on air, Jensen, Nico and myself, and we all concluded that based on what we could see from the onboard shot, it's humanly impossible to react to that timing and speed difference. So it's good to see this in common sense there in the stewards' room, I think.
As George Russell climbing into his Williams that he might not be climbing into for much longer. The smart money is on George Russell to move to Mercedes for next season to replace Valtteri Bottas, who the smart money is on Bottas climbing into one of the Alfa Romeos for next season. We'll continue a drive and chat in a few moments, but first and foremost, Viva Hollandia down to Ted Kravitz. Morning, Ted.
Viva indeed. Hello, Crofty. Hello, Jason, Anthony, everybody. Yes, so sensible decision from the stewards there. Where were they in Austria with Lando Norris, eh?
Well,
that's what I'd like
that
to know.
set off a chain of events, didn't
Good,
it?
yes, it certainly did. But we have some sympathy down here in the paddock and pit lane for Kimi Räikkönen on the weekend, where he announces that this will be his last weekend in Formula One, when he mentally and physically wants to check off all the circuits as he goes, as they will be his last times around here in a Formula One car. He goes and tests positive for COVID-19. So he won't be mentally or physically or any other way checking off Zandvoort as the last time I'm going to come here in a Formula One car, and maybe not even Monza as well. So get well soon, Kimi. Hope you're okay wherever you are. But it has meant a frisson of excitement amongst the Polish TV crowd, Crofty.
Oh, yes.
Who were on their way. They normally only do Saturday and Sunday live at the Grand Prix circuit, but they were on their way to Zandvoort, where they got the call, quick, he's driving. Robert's driving. Get there quicker and set up and get a live link on or something like that, because the whole of Poland wants to know, is excited, as indeed the whole of the rest of the world. Robert has got another go at a Grand Prix, and so they're excited and we're excited as well. But plenty more to catch up with. We'll tell you about how Ferrari rate their chances later on in the session, and whether this is indeed a fresh new engine, as we all expect, in the back of Hamilton's Mercedes.
Yes, engine number one, the oldest engine in the pool yesterday, produced an oil system failure, which is why Lewis Hamilton stopped on the track and only did 3 laps in FP2. So an important session for him. He's already equalled the amount of laps that he did in the afternoon session. 1:12.0 is his best time and the best time of the session so far. So he's got to play catch up. Verstappen wants to get some unblocked, undisturbed fast laps in, and I'm sure the rest of the drivers will be equally keen as well. We've had a race here, the F3 race. We've seen what racing is like at Zandvoort, and those lines through turn 3, the high line or the low line, were exploited by various drivers. Just made me feel that you can be quite bullish in pushing drivers wide here, going through that banking, but you've got to be very brave.
Yeah, you do. I mean, it's very, very difficult to throw it at the inside into turn 3 because you run wide. You know, you basically, the inside wheel lifts off the ground, you get a lot of understeers, and you end up in the side of the other car. But there was a really interesting move. Someone tried at turn 1. Didn't quite come off, but they were side by side through turn 2, and then he had the high ground, if you like, through turn 3. So he was much higher and was able to carry the speed. But some great racing around here in F3. You know, hopefully we're at the same level.
If you were Max Verstappen, say, would you be watching the junior Formula this weekend just to try and get an indication of where they're racing?
100%. 100%. They do this as part of the drivers' pre-race or a pre-event strategy, really, to go through old onboards from what they've done, and certainly what other categories have done as well, and you definitely learn from it. Mainly starts of races, you'll be looking through on the laptop or whatever, you know, with your engineers, deciding, making a plan or a couple of plans where you go, if you're on the inside of the grid or the outside of the grid, if it's wet or dry, you know, how did it unfold over multiple years in different categories. And yeah, the more knowledge you have, the more prepared you are to go into any event.
Well, here is Daniel Ricciardo on a fast lap on the medium compound tyre. I'm a little surprised we've only got 6 cars out there at the moment. I thought we might see a few more, just trying to get some banker laps in before the inevitable red flag, double wave yellows, etc.
Yeah, exactly. It was really interesting to see from the heli shot into turn 3. It actually looks like they turn right before they turn left. It's really, really strange because obviously the ground is flatter on the right-hand side, and then all 4 wheels are touching the ground, less prone to locking. You can brake later, but it's really, really unusual. You just don't see that in Formula 1.
Speedway.
Yeah, it's really, really unusual, but it's great to see. And in the F3 race, when they're all filing through that corner, nose to tail, it was really, really cool to see. The high line working.
It's like the old Lightning McQueen line, isn't it? Turn right to go left.
Yes, exactly. Just like it.
Yes, I do have young children.
I like cars. I thought planes was better.
Well, we know why. Yeah.
Why is that? I don't know why.
You don't know why? I'll show you my Wikipedia page.
Written by himself.
Yeah.
No, not written by myself. So Robert Kubica completes a lap with a 1:15.1, 3 seconds off the pace. What can Robert Kubica do this weekend? Can we expect any more than, well, if he gets ahead of the Hasses, that's job well done? I mean, it's a big ask, isn't it?
Massive. He's just got to enjoy himself, you know. He's in the position in his career where he's going out there to have fun. I hope so, anyway. And normally when you have fun, you do all right. So
I don't know if you already mentioned, I was doing the Skypad, if you mentioned his Le Mans race.
No, because he was racing a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, I mean, heartbreak. I've been there and done that myself, leading the race. The last lap, the car failed on him, and it would have been a class win for him and his teammates. And so look, he deserves a bit of luck and a better weekend, because anyone watching that really, really felt for him.
3 times we've seen him, as I said, in FP1 this year. Hasn't raced in F1 since 2019, but you came back from Le Mans. And one of the first things you said about Le Mans this year, because you were following him for a while, was Robert Kubica. He is still seriously fast.
He's definitely still got it.
For how many laps could you see him, or was he pulling away from you?
Until I came into the pits. But no, he can still definitely drive a racing car very quickly. But yeah, getting up to speed on this kind of circuit. I was speaking to Lando yesterday on the Skypad, and he was saying, this is one hell of a track. Physically, mentally, you know, to wind your way around here, there's a lot going on. It's akin to Budapest, you know, where we see a lot of differences between teammates in their lap times. And yeah, it's a short lap, but it comes at you thick and fast. So it's a tall order for him, that's for sure.
2003 and 2004 was when Robert Kubica raced here at Zandvoort. So many, many years ago. Lando Norris is another, of course, that has raced here at Zandvoort in the past. Double winner from pole here in the Formula 3 Euro Series in 2017. Mick Schumacher and Nikita Mazepin were in that race as well, and Norris goes second fastest, a 10th off Lewis Hamilton as he returns to the track after that big accident, of course, in Spa, which well, did a lot of damage to the car, but didn't damage the chassis. They didn't have to change that, or the engine as well. And that's Lewis Hamilton kicking up a bit of sand, which does tend to happen when you run wide here. You don't have to run wide by much to kick up the sand.
No, you don't. And yeah, already a lot of stones, or kind of like rocks, on the circuit through the chicane there. One thing about Lando, he doesn't build up to it, does he? I mean, that was a very, very good lap. He's obviously on the medium tyre, but you just watch him on track using every bit of the road, and reasonably aggressive as well.
His inner confidence is sky high at the moment. Despite what happened to him in Spa, he knows inherently he's got the speed in this car. He's got the speed over his teammate. That builds confidence for any driver, and he's continuing that. And it's great to see. It's great to see when the driver's in the groove, riding high on that confidence, and I expect great things from him for the remainder of this year. And yes, I think he'll have multiple podiums to come.
Led Q1 and Q2 in Spa. First McLaren driver to do that since 2012, when McLaren had a couple of decent drivers in the cockpit back then. And that is his teammate Daniel Ricciardo, just locking up, going into the Tarzan corner. First corner with its banking here at Zandvoort. So far, Daniel Ricciardo, third fastest, behind his teammate, half a second difference. Lewis Hamilton leads the way, but we've only had 12 laps. Spots there that we have on the medium tyre on the C2s of Daniel Ricciardo's car.
Yeah, not the prettiest. Normally when you have that much camber on the circuit, the hot spots aren't that bad. Not being pushed into the ground. Yeah, I mean, obviously we've seen quite a bit of Lewis on track. It must be very strange for him, because he's probably not going to end this session close to the front, because he's out there putting mileage on, and he's driving on the circuit at its dirtiest. We're not going to see what he can really do, I don't think, until we get to qualifying.
Does he need to get a high fuel long run in this session? Is there time to do that?
I think he's going to have to. I mean, he drives the car very different to Valtteri, and the pace has always been very different than race pace, so I think it's probably a good thing. It's tricky though, because everyone else is on low fuel and throwing new tyres at it, so it's, you're getting in a lot of people's ways that he's not going to really care about, but he's going to do his own thing.
Saw some decent speed from Alpine riding on board here with Fernando Alonso, and a mighty fast first sector. Personal best only in the middle sector, but I think the car, it's fair to say, is a bit more hooked up around here than it was in the dry in Spa. So we didn't get to see too much of that over the course of the weekend, but they definitely struggled for pace in the wet. That was fair to say.
Last sector looks good.
Yeah,
he's on it. But there you go.
Esteban Ocon yesterday, as Alonso goes fastest overall. His FP2 time, good enough for third fastest, wasn't it? But that was his best in an FP2 session since the Styrian Grand Prix. And we all got excited then. Alpine got the pace here, and then he didn't make it out of Q1. So you kind of have to put that caveat in, that on a Friday, and especially as we go through this season, fuel loads can differ, but engine modes can really differ as well. We can't compare apples and apples, because they're not all the same fuels at the same time. If that makes in any way any sense to you whatsoever.
No, it absolutely does. Yeah, I mean, we always take it with a pinch of salt whether someone's going fast or slow in free practice sessions. There's a bit of a theme, isn't there? We see many times now the top teams put on a new set of soft tyres, say in FP2, and they can't even match their lap time from the medium or harder tyre runs, because they either put more fuel in it or turn the engine modes down. It's become a bit more of a common theme, but yeah, Alpine's one of those teams quite hard to judge, I'd say, over the course of the weekend.
Sergio Perez, here's a man that could do with a bit more pace today. He was a long way behind his teammate Max Verstappen yesterday, even with Verstappen's interrupted runs in FP2. And I think even Christian Horner, the team boss at Red Bull, knows that Perez has got to start delivering a little bit over a single lap at the moment.
Yeah, I think he's on a bad way.
He's a great race driver.
Yeah,
he understands the tyres so well. He's always good in the race, but qualifying, particularly on a circuit like this one, you need to get it done. You need to try and close that gap to Max.
There's no good being a great race driver if you're starting
exactly
2.5 seconds.
Yeah,
Max in Spa.
On some tracks you can overtake, but if you do it here, that's not going to be what you want at all. Here he goes then, round turn 3. So the photographer's getting a decent shot as Sergio Perez makes his way around this Zandvoort circuit on a flying lap on the medium compound tyre. So Hamilton's gone out on the softs. Leclerc has gone fastest overall with a 1:11.7, and his teammate Carlos Sainz goes second fastest, and they're both on the medium tyres at the moment. Ferrari 1 and 2 yesterday, Jensen, and for the first time since Monaco. And we know what happened in Monaco qualifying. You know, what a great day for Charles Leclerc. Let's not mention Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. No, they did a great job there, but this is such a different circuit. It's surprising to see them this quick. But they're both pretty hooked up. It's also good to see such a mix of cars near the front. You know, I don't think we can predict the top 10 in qualifying yet because they're all so close.
Perez goes 7th fastest. He's 3/10 off the pace, which is now big set by Fernando Alonso.
Yeah, he's able to do a slow lap, recharge, and go again on these tyres. So they're hanging on, which is good to see. Obviously, he's on the medium.
There's a few drivers now going wide at turn 12. That's where we saw Hamilton kicking up a bit of sand a few moments ago, and now Charles Leclerc's done it as well. They might want to be getting a sandbag out and flattening that down a little bit.
It's something you'll see less of in the race. They'll have to be careful of moments like that, because you can easily pick up a bit of debris, especially if they're, you know, it's a very slow pit lane here. They've reduced the speed for this weekend, and so therefore it punishes your pit stop time even more. So you'll be pushed to a little lock up there into turn 11. You'll be pushed more to do a one-stopper. You want to reduce the amount of times you use the pit lane, and therefore the gauge of the tyre goes down, and when the gauge goes down, the chance of getting a puncture of debris is higher. So they're going to have to be wary of that at different parts of the track.
It's also...
Oh, that's going to hit. I was going to say that's going straight for the polystyrene board.
Lovely catch.
He did save that well, didn't he? But that's Sebastian Vettel heading off the track. Lost a lot of time in FP1 yesterday after his power unit issue and his related ERS problem as well.
Punished for running wide, though. Yeah. There's a thing.
Good catch on, you know. Let's have a look off board, down at turn 10. But you need to get turn 10 right, because then you've got a very long DRS straight following it.
It's a nasty corner, this one, because you turn in on the brakes, you wait for the car to rotate. As you're getting on power, it's still got the rotation, and then the rears cry enough, and it starts to come around. The cars are so heavy these days. There's so much inertia that it's hard to stop.
He actually locks up before he gets off the circuit. Look at that. He's actually got it all locked up, trying to slow the car down before he touches the grass.
He did take out the polystyrene board in the end, and the rears got it, even if the fronts were...
Oh, they get a beep and lights, you know, beep in their ears to know when to use the DRS. They don't get bored.
Yeah, but it looks spectacular when they collect it.
I'm sure there's another one somewhere.
How many spares do you need to bring to Zandvoort?
Yeah, different on different circuits.
But see, we're talking to spares, on the inside of the final corner, you might have spotted the eagle-eyed out there. There's a whole load of looks like metal bars laying on the inside of the corner.
Yeah,
and they're wrapped on the inside of the track. Yeah, over the barrier on the inside. And they're wrapped in this kind of camouflage netting. They are replacement bars for the safer barrier on the outside. No room here. There's no room.
Absolutely. I ran the track yesterday. There is absolutely no room either side of this particular circuit. And it is, even when you're running it, it feels relentless. And it is so up and down that the cameras don't do justice to some of the elevation changes here. The corners are just, they're magnificent. They really are. This one here is a very sharp drop down at the chicane at the end of the first DRS straight.
And you feel that?
Notice quite so much.
So turn 12, you really feel it as you go into the corner. The steering goes light, drops away in your hands as you go through that dip.
Someone's had a big moment, and it's one of the Ferraris, I'm being told. And it is coming. Oh, that is going into turn 3. It's got a red flag, and it's Carlos Sainz. And you can see the Red Bull and the Aston Martin and the Alpine on the scene slowing down. But Carlos Sainz coming out of that little kink into turn 3.
Oh, sorry guys, I don't know what happened.
Now,
I should imagine Crofty's lost the rear going through turn 2.
yeah.
We've seen a few cars get a little bit light there on the rear, and it's just rotated round, just like we were talking about Vettel, the Vettel incident. This has happened at a bit of higher speed. I mean, it's gone in backwards, I think.
Are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. I just have no idea what happened.
This is the difference with an F1 car compared to an F3 car. Obviously, we saw the cars spinning yesterday and stopping in the middle of the track for turn 3. It's true. Whereas an F1 car's carrying so much speed through 2. This is what happens if you get it a little bit wrong. But
and heavier, so that inertia stays with you for longer.
I think one positive, if there is one, is that the rear wheels are still on the car. So in terms of the gearbox, everything should be fine.
That will be the race gearbox in Carlos Sainz's Ferrari. Now, coming out of turn 2, as we can see now.
That's 1B, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then that's 2. Yeah, just very late.
Just lost
how
the
he's
rear.
lost the rear. Yeah, so actually sideways in. Yeah,
that is a really big hit.
Yeah.
And he's doing about 110, 115 miles an hour at that stage before he loses the rear. And that's a hefty impact. And I would be worried if I was Carlos Sainz about my gearbox there.
I think he's carried a bit too much speed through the corner and it understeered. He went a little bit wider than he wanted to, and then that camber change has caught him out.
The weird thing is it's quite a slow oversteer. It's quite a slow moment, isn't it?
Come around slowly, yeah. He'd be kicking himself about that one, and well, yeah, the clock starts to tick now, doesn't it, for qualifying? Can they repair that car? What's the damage to the rear? It did hit that left rear, didn't it, into the Tech Pro barrier there,
which did its job superbly well and didn't bounce the car back out onto the track again. However, there's damage at the front, damage to the rear, a lot of checks need to be done, and third free practice session of this Dutch Grand Prix weekend, and a third session where we've got a red flag delay. Down to you, Ted Kravitz.
And it's time for these big cranes that you see spotted around some of these corners to go into action. It's the size of a 20-storey house, this crane, or 20-storey building, I should say. If you live in a 20-storey house, then well done you. It's so just obviously, if you're here, Crofty and Anthony and Jensen, you know where this is. It's just by the exit of the paddock. So the way the track loops round. So I've just come out of the paddock in the pit lane, and I'm having a look at it being craned away. It's also just by the gantry, the gallery of the media centre. So all the journalists have come out and got their phones out and taken pictures of poor Carlos Sainz and his wrecked car. There's no other word for it, is there? And I know we tend to refer to the gearbox in terms of, you know, just sort of interesting sideline. We don't wish a penalty on anyone, do we, Crofty? And we'll hopefully that this will be able to be patched up by the excellent Ferrari mechanics. They'll be able to go into qualifying without any more hindrance or consequence than just missing the practice time on fresh soft tyres, etc., etc. But we will see. The car is about to be careered off or craned off just in front of me, and yes, it is a real mess, as you say. I actually spoke to some people from Ferrari earlier before the session. I said, is this pace real? And they said that they thought that the red flags and the way that the practice sort of shook out yesterday flattered them a little bit. Other people were more inconvenienced than they were, but yes, they did think the pace was real. We're hoping for sort of third and fourth on the grid. But, well, we'll have to see. If he can manage to get that after this inconvenience today, then he will have done well, Sainz.
Yes, he will. And there is the sight of that wrecked Ferrari car being craned away. Carlos Sainz crashing at turn 3. In the session, he had put in a time that was good enough for the 5th fastest so far before he brought out the first red flag of the day, and potentially not the last. Gotta say, Anthony Davidson, that Tech Pro barrier really did its job very well there to absorb the impact and not bounce the car back into the middle of the track.
Absolutely, you know, turn 3 was one of these corners at this circuit, Crofty. It's been heavily modified and revised. I've been following the progression with Michael Massey and the FIA. That's going to be a feature that's aired this weekend, so keep your eyes over Sky Sports F1 the remainder of the weekend. And all of the FIA's calculations right there came into play. You know, they calculate the speed of the car, the likelihood of where it will crash, and what to do, which barrier to use. The fact they use a safer barrier in the final corner, much higher speed, and a Tech Pro barrier, two very different technologies at turn 3. it just goes to show, look, driver's okay, pat on the back, he's obviously kicking himself, he's hurt his pride, but that's the only injury he has. It's more of a mental impact than physical there. So it just goes to show there's more than meets the eye when it comes to circuit redesign.
It's the sort of thing, Jensen, that observers don't really pay too much heed to, but drivers also getting involved with the safety of circuits.
No, I think, well done, Anthony. I have to say, that is fantastic. You know, I think that I've never seen a car go in and it seemed quite soft the way that it went into the barrier. I'm sure it feels very different when you're inside the car, but yeah, it seemed to do its job amazingly well.
You see on the inside of turn 3 those metal plates that have had to put down because it's so soft for the sandy.
Yeah.
But the car would have basically just sunk into it, so they've got to put those massive. It doesn't look very pretty, but it's effective. It works.
I wonder if these massive cranes can actually move the car to where the pits are, so they can actually work on it earlier.
I would imagine the pit entry is right down there. I'm not quite sure whether a car kind of dangling on a crane you want to be putting into the pit lane or something. But if it's closed, it's going to be a bit safer. I don't actually know where the head's on the ground.
I think the crane can reach over the outside of turn 3. Okay. It's interesting they put it to the inside. Yeah, and then they could have got the car back to the pit lane. But I think once it's there on the inside of the track, I think that's there for the remainder of the session now. Which
obviously would not suit Ferrari because they lose an extra half an hour to try and rebuild the car. This is just the moment that Sebastian Vettel found himself in a spot of bother at turn 10. Oh. Luckily for him, there's about 4 meters of runoff.
Can you check the seat on the left-hand side, upper side? There's I think one of these rescue belts that came loose in turn 9, and then, yeah, for sure didn't help, but yeah, was also a bit caught out by the tailwind in 10.
So the wind not helping him, but his seat's moving as well.
No, he said that it's one of the rescue belts that they have, which the marshals use as an extraction process if you've hurt your back or something in the car. And they can actually lift you and the seat out all in one. He said one of those extraction belts had come loose, so it's annoying him on the way into turn 10. But what do you make of that, Jens?
Yeah, unless it gets stuck, your arm gets stuck on it or something. Things are always a little bit frustrating like that, but hey.
It's another Mexican wave in the grandstands. Still got a red flag here at Zandvoort. Carlos Sainz is back in the pit lane. His car has been deposited on the inside of the track after crashing at turn 3. The marshals, Karun Chandok's down there telling us, the marshals saying the protocol is to put the car on the inside at turn 3 and not to try and put it into the pit lane entrance so it can get back a bit quicker, even though the crane could reach. But Sainz back in the garage and feeling very guilty for what happened. This is what happened to Sebastian Vettel at turn 10, about 5 minutes before Sainz's accident.
Can you check the seat on the left-hand side, upper side? There's I think one of these rescue belts that came loose in turn 9, and then, yeah, for sure didn't help, but yeah, been caught out by the tailwind in 10.
The rescue belts that help with extraction, and Sebastian Vettel noticing that, and I'm sure he's noticing that as well, because you can't help but notice along the main straight the fans have started a massive big Mexican wave. Not only because it's the Dutch Grand Prix, because everyone's happy to be here, but Max Verstappen likes them to do a Mexican wave, so we could do one in the commentary box. I'll start it, Jensen will follow. Nico Rosberg, one-handed Mexican wave. That was pitiful. That was shocking.
That wasn't great.
That wasn't.
I wasn't ready for it.
Don't stand around slouching with your hands in your pockets, as my cricket teacher used to tell me. So what do you make of Zandvoort so far then?
Oh, it's great. I mean, it's a real driver's track, as you've been saying. A lot of action there's going to be, and the drivers are on the edge out there. Yeah. There's no room for error. We saw with Sainz, we saw with Vettel just now, and that's what we want to see. I just hope that at the same time he'll still be able to overtake as well in the race, but we don't know yet.
What do you reckon? 50-50 on that one. You've got to be brave to make an overtake here.
Depends on the tyre wear as well. If we do see some tyre wear towards end of stints, that could be an opportunity there, or if there's some offset strategies. So we need to wait if Pirelli can help us out a little bit with that.
We saw a lot of marbling yesterday. By the way, session's going to resume in about 40 seconds time. A lot of marbles yesterday. That does indicate a bit of wear going on.
Yeah, it does, but the runs were pretty consistent, weren't they, on the soft tyre? That's the only thing. Go Max.
Yeah, that's a very good use of sunbeds on a beach that not many people are on today, because they're all at the Grand Prix.
Very, very good use. But yeah, I mean, when you look at Lewis's tyre this morning, obviously the circuit's a little bit green, but it looked like he was graining on the tyre. I mean, he was locking up a lot, so probably affecting it quite a bit. But bringing the gravel on the circuit is going to be a big thing as well for the race through that little chicane.
Yeah, because the ideal line is giving the gravel a little tap.
Yeah.
So in qualifying, everybody's going to be throwing gravel onto the track, which is going to be pretty insane. Let's see how that plays out.
We might need to go down to the local hardware shop, buy a couple more brooms, I think, ahead of qualifying. Here we go then. The session is going to be underway, or is underway once more. We've seen every driver on the track today, bar Max Verstappen. Christian Horner, his team boss, is with us on the Red Bull pit wall. Christian, why has Max been in the garage for half an hour? He's got a few nerves? Is he a bit shy? Doesn't want to come out and face the public?
Nothing like it. He was about to go, and then we had the red flag, so actually did him a favour. So he's out there now, you know, obviously to get a few laps in and see what we've got.
So, news from the stewards room. How did the conversation go between Jonathan Wheatley, your sporting director, Max, and the stewards over that red flag? No further action. I'm sure you think that was the right decision, but what was their defence?
Well, I think that what you could clearly see from the footage that they had available to them is that you know, Max was pretty much alongside the other car as the red light came on, and there was such a variance in speed because the other car was on a slow lap, on a build lap, Max was on a push lap. He would have simply never been able to stop the car in time without probably causing an accident, you know, behind. So you know, thankfully the right decision was made.
Hi Christian, it's Nico. So of course we all agree with that. Yesterday Max wasn't even able to get one single clean lap in because of traffic. Did you put any extra work into that last night to maybe create some really extreme offsetting strategy in qualifying or something?
Yeah, you know, obviously we're trying to just get him a bit of clean track, and it's all gone a bit bananas around him at the moment. So he's just taking it easy now through turn 13 before he starts a lap, and I don't think he's had a single clear lap so far this weekend.
Christian, we've just seen a bit of a moment from Vettel. Are the guys struggling with rear warm-up on the outlap?
I think what they're struggling with is the tyres going off on the second lap. The tyres seem to be bang right there on lap one. That's what the report was yesterday. It was more in the second lap, then the rear started to get away from them, and Checo reported something quite similar to that, obviously on this first run.
And we're by the seaside, so breeze is always going to be an issue here. But I've just seen some sand kind of being blown up into the air. Are the drivers saying that wind is a problem today?
I don't think them have got any wind issues at the moment. So it's not something that's been reported yet. I think you know, when the circuit in areas is pretty sheltered, so yeah, no issues yet.
Max on an absolute flyer for his first lap on the medium tyres, already going purple. It was clear yesterday he had great race pace when he did manage to get some race laps in. Do you feel you're well set here for what could be a dominant weekend?
I think it's all about quality, isn't it? It's about track position, because I think passing's going to be similar to Monaco around here, so it's all about where you're going to start on the grid, so that's going to be crucial for us.
And he's going to complete the lap in about 3 seconds time. This could well be the fastest lap of the day so far. It is by half a second. So it was worth waiting for, wasn't it?
Absolutely, just hear you above the crowd. So yeah, but Bottas obviously he's on the soft tyre as well. So it's tight, and we've seen with Mercedes it's been so tight, you know, all the way through all the qualies so far this year, and it's going to be about getting the perfect laps in.
Thanks, Christian. We'll let you get back to the peace and quiet, or not, down on the pit wall there.
Look at that, Crocky, that was amazing. So the way to get out of the way from others is the ideal line on the inside, hugging the curve. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Perez was like hugging the inside curve to get out the way for the guy running around the top on the outside.
It's strange to see, isn't it?
It really is. And what must Max Verstappen be feeling? Wherever he goes, there are a lot of fans cheering him on, but he has never experienced anything like he's going to experience this weekend.
There aren't many racing drivers that have experienced basically 99% of the fans there to support you.
It's like the days of Schumacher at Hockenheim, isn't it?
You're saying you didn't have that in Silverstone then, Jensen?
Obviously I did. I said there aren't many.
Oh, okay.
We don't mention Silverstone and Jensen.
Whoa.
It's a no-no, right?
It's a very touchy subject.
no-no.
How about you in Germany?
Yes, all on my side. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. It's amazing.
He gave him something to cheer about in Germany. That was the thing.
But the problem was, we also had other very good drivers from our countries, didn't we? Racing with us. I had Lewis in the UK. He was okay. He's done okay. You had Sebastian and Michael.
Not too bad either.
They were okay as well.
Got to spare a thought for Anthony Davidson, you know, when he was racing with you and Lewis at Silverstone, barely got a look in on the merchandise stand.
At least he gets the seat in here, we don't.
There is that. He's in the commentary box still. But it's proper adulation, but how does that put extra pressure on a driver, though, coming to a weekend like this, where, let's face it, 99% of the crowd are here to see one man?
I think you could, yeah, but, oh no, yes, of course, so it does put extra pressure, because for Max, this is the one that he wants to win this year. It just makes a difference, you know, when you feel the whole crowd is there for you, you really want to do a good job.
We're on board with Verstappen. Let's just stay with this lap. He's already gone purple for the first sector with a 24.6. And the thing is, if you know you've got a good car underneath you and you've got the support of all the crowd here, you know, you can start to get aggressive with confidence, can't you?
Yeah, you can. And, you know, the problem is it's how you handle that pressure. Some people are good at handling it. I know it. For me, it wasn't my favourite thing to have too much pressure on me. But, you know, when you look at Max drive the car, you can understand why it's tricky for other people to drive, because he sets it up with this little bit of oversteer on the way into the corners, which a lot of drivers don't have the confidence to push it that hard like he does.
Yeah, I think Red Bull admit that their car has been very tricky, but for one man for a number of years here. Half a second Verstappen to Bottas for his second flying lap, and Bottas on the soft compound tyre. Anthony is watching at race control, trying to compare the two drivers. What have you found?
Well, I got their team radio up and running as well, Crofty, and after the first lap, his engineer came on the radio to say you're losing a little bit of time to Bottas on the braking into turn 1, but obviously he's on the soft tyre. Norris now pops into P2, but yeah, just goes to show that second lap with Verstappen how much there is lap time driver evolution.
Quite a half a second difference, Red Bull to Mercedes as it stands at the moment. Ted, down to you.
So if this is, in football parlance, Crofty, an away fixture for Lewis Hamilton, do we think by his engine problem yesterday, missing most of the session, certainly the second session, that he was already down to 10 men? Well, if he is, then I can tell you what's going on with his engine. That might put him back up to 11, because it's the freshest one available. It's the new engine, the new one from Spa that Lewis is now using for the rest of the weekend. In fact, Mercedes tell me that all of their runners are using their lowest mileage engines available, with exception, well, including Lando Norris, but his engine is still being repaired from his qualifying crash at Spa. So he's using the next lowest mileage engine available.
Surprised, given it's not a power-sensitive circuit here?
Yeah, a little bit.
Because every time you use an engine in a race, the next race you use it, it's got
slightly less power.
Yeah.
It's minimal though with these engines these days, so it's probably a horsepower or two. So I don't think it's going to make a massive difference.
What will make a difference is if drivers and teams have to start taking extra engines outside of their allocation throughout the rest of the season, and Red Bull very much one of those after the crashes that they've experienced in recent races. It'd be interesting to see if Red Bull do have to take a penalty, which they say they do with Checo and with Max Verstappen, where it comes. Sochi might be a good bet there, because you could overtake a bit, get the extra horsepower advantage. Might limit the damage somewhat. We were thinking, oh, do you take it at Monza, put it in for the sprint race, and therefore you've got the sprint race to serve a bit of your penalty? But it's not the case. If you do take an engine penalty at Monza or Brazil, which I think is the other sprint qualifier for this season, you have to serve your penalty still at the start of the Grand Prix, not at the start of the sprints, because that is still qualifying, even though we award points for it. And if you're confused, just write to Mr. Todd, care of the FIA in Paris.
Fernando on a flyer on his soft tyres. Purple first sector. Looking mighty strong, actually. Bit of understeer there, though.
It's so exciting to see Fernando back in such great form this year. It's really, really awesome. And Ocon is flying this weekend too, so Alpine are definitely going to be a strong force in qualifying.
Yeah, as we were saying, though, we've seen this from Alpine before, then they faded away in qualifying, but the indication is that might not be replicated here this weekend because of their performance so far in FP3. Alonso going quickest by 300ths from Max Verstappen, but it's soft against medium tyre there. Lando Norris on another lap on the soft tyre is a 10th down on Fernando Alonso. Bottas, Gasly completing the top 5. Hamilton's done 14 laps so far on his soft tyres. Bit out of sync, as we suggested at the start of FP3 with everyone else, because he's got to get more laps in with more fuel because he didn't get any race simulations in yesterday. Yeah,
it's not easy for him. We're not going to see his pace until we get to qualifying, as we said. But he'll be there. You know, he will definitely be there. It's interesting to see that the tyres are holding on. These guys can do 2 laps on the soft tyre. Obviously with a slow down lap in the middle, but great pace there by Fernando and by Lando to be with him. You know, there's 1/10 between the top 3. Great to see.
Doesn't show much potential for massive tyre wear if they're getting better laps out of a second run.
That is true.
I wanted to go with your theory on let's hope for some tyre wear.
You're very right. That's not too promising for our hope for a lot of overtaking in the race.
I mean, when they stick the fuel in it, hopefully it's going to push that front left tyre hard through these high-speed corners.
I just get the feeling for the race. We've seen red flags pretty much in every single session, F1 and the other categories that are racing here this weekend. It's inevitable we're going to get an incident during the race. I'll put the hex on it now, I've said it. But a safety car will bunch the field up again. A red flag, you know, will obviously give us a restart again. Even if we get a middle part of the race where there's not much overtaking, one little moment and you're off and into the barriers, you get a safety car, everything gets reset. That's what I'm thinking. Like Baku, when we've seen that before, one safety car could lead to another because the field are bunched up again, and we just get crazy races.
Yeah, totally, and it also mixes up the strategy a little bit, hopefully. But when you watch the cars go round here, if they're not getting high front left degradation, there's something wrong, because they are fully loaded on that front left for a very long time, sort of turn 5 onwards.
So Esteban Ocon, 4th fastest. It's Alpine 1 and 4 at the moment.
I think I had a deployment problem in 7. Okay, understood. We'll have a look.
Maybe there was more to come.
Yeah, a bit of a setback there, huh? Because Alonso's first lap was like almost 5/10 quicker than Ocon.
And that, in the gravel, is Lando Norris, who's managed to keep the car going. And we'll look into his mirrors and get back out on the circuit once more, depositing a lot of gravel. Not that he could do anything against that, to be fair, as he goes back out onto the track again. And that's just the approach to turn 10, catching Lando Norris out, going off the track at turn 9. We'll see a replay of that in a moment.
Yeah, it's a difficult braking there because you're steering so much going into turn 10.
Yeah. So this is 9 here.
Front inside is quite easy to lock up. You got snap oversteer, the opposite.
Sebastian was saying earlier that he got caught out a bit by the tailwind down at that particular part of the track, but that isn't a bit of a dip. As Christian was saying, you're quite sheltered here in the dunes, but that is a bit of a dip.
The rear looked horrible. He was double snap oversteer was going in there. Might also be brake balance, just being a little bit too far rearwards, because you would set it rearwards for that kind of type of corner. So that's kind of all those are little details that you need to get on top of in preparation for qualifying to really nail that landing.
I love that we say tailwind when he's doing 130 miles an hour, 200 kilometers an hour.
It just adds a bit of extra to the approach, doesn't it, really? I'm amazed as well that you get any time to adjust anything on the steering wheel here, because you seem to be constantly turning it. When is it straight for long enough to start adjusting your brake bias? George Russell on the fly. Let's head down to Ted, though. What's happening, Ted?
I'd like to see what Mr. Saturday can do on, what is it today? It's Saturday.
It is a Saturday.
Let's see what he can do.
Saturday last week paid dividends for his Sunday. Guess what? He's gone 6th fastest.
Yes, come on, Georgie. He didn't have it in the dry as well as in the torrential rain of Belgium. But he just displaced Pierre Gasly, who's having a good weekend in the AlphaTauri. He's actually did that lap, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, on the medium tyre when everybody else around him was on the soft. So he's actually come into the pits now and is going to change and do the qualifying qualifying simulation. Preparation for qualifying. As for Robert Kubica, it's fresh in the car this morning. He's actually, this feedback from the team is that he's getting better and better, quicker and quicker in the high-speed corner. Just needs to find some time on the minimum speed, they say, around turns 2 and 3 and 10 and 11. And seeing as we've got Jensen and Nico in there, maybe they can expand on how he would do that. Increase his minimum speed through those corners.
Go fast.
Starter for Ted.
Go faster.
Brake less.
More throttle.
Ted. You wanted a complex answer to that one. Go faster, brake less.
I said minimum speed. They might be able to say something about velocity and trajectory, but
You're not talking to engineers here.
He knows what he's doing. It's just it's always tricky jumping in a car. These guys have, albeit mixed up sessions yesterday, but they've driven the circuit, they've slept on it, whereas he's jumping straight in. It's not easy.
2.9 seconds off the pace, Robert Kubica at the moment, and he's jumping straight in to the weekend because Kimi Raikkonen is isolating after testing positive for COVID. We wish Kimi all the best. He's not showing any symptoms, which is good. He tested positive, so that ends his weekend. And also, he's not the only one self-isolating. Jos Capito, the team boss down at Williams, picked the wrong man to have dinner with last night. He was sat at the table with Kimi Raikkonen enjoying whatever Dutch delights and waffles they were eating, so he is now self-isolating as well. The COVID protocol continues, and it is essential that Formula One, puts these COVID protocols into place. We all, stick to various separate bubbles to make sure we can go do our jobs every day.
Exactly, but it's probably the worst weekend for Jost as well. It's relatively busy, I've heard, with Williams and Mercedes at the moment.
Yes, we'll come back to that in a moment, because Lewis Hamilton's just got a new set of softs on, and Valtteri Bottas, as we can see, out on the track at the moment on a new set of soft tyres. So take us through the rest of this lap, JB, as he goes wide.
I'm actually looking at the corner analysis between Alonso and Bottas. Very interesting. Alonso not scrumming up as much speed, a much higher minimum. Ted will like that, but carrying a lot more speed through that turn 3. But here we are with Valtteri, very, very quick to that right-hander. It's a tiny lift, and also through this one. It's such a fast corner and such a fast circuit in a Formula 1 car. It really shows the change of direction in an F1 car from the right to the left there in a medium-speed corner. Bit of a snap of the rear through there. Wouldn't have cost him too much. It's amazing how early they're able to open the DRS though on the F corner exit. Braking for here tricky. One little mistake and you're through the gravel. Not for Valtteri. Lovely line. 2 purple sectors. Bit oversteer in the exit, kicking up a bit of dust. Through the last major corner, and now it's just about hitting your revs and being as smooth as you can through this last lovely banked corner. Up through the gears. And this should be an easy P1.
And it is by nearly half a second to Fernando Alonso. Nicholas Latifi went 6th fastest while we were watching Bottas, now 7th fastest. I think, Nico, the track is starting to ramp up quite a bit now as well in terms of these times.
Yeah, big time. As more and more people are putting the soft tyre on, more and more rubber's going down, and that just makes the track ramp up so much. Lewis, that's not a great lap from him there. He's still trying to find his way, still building up to it. Still got a bit more time and maybe a second shot on that set of tyres as well.
He lost 3/10 to his teammate in the first sector. Okay, so he's quicker in the middle part.
Yeah, you can see him pushing the button on the steering wheel. I guess that's giving him all the power he needs. It looks like they've turned it up possibly for this last run.
Going through turn 3, that is Max Verstappen. Nico, take us through the rest of this lap.
Unbelievable, the braking into that. So now going up the hill here, and now you drive by memory and you just give it a flick in, you stay full throttle, at the very end you start going up the throttle a tiny bit, and then straight back on again. Same thing here, stay left, little flick in, touch away from the throttle and back on, and then here braking late, and then releasing the brake to try and carry as much speed as possible into the corner, use the maximum amount of track, try and get back to the other side, and then dive in again for the next apex. Flat out here, DRS, like whilst you're still oversteering, you hit the DRS button, which is difficult to get right. Braking at 80 here, hitting that curb on the inside in exactly the right spot, super important to go fast. Double purple, so he's flying at the moment. Last corner, hitting the apex, using maximum amount of the what is it called? The curb on the outside. Slipstream, Red Bull timed it perfectly, guys. Great job with that. Do it the same way in qualifying, you got pole guaranteed. And the crowd is going insane, and what a lap! Can we just say 1096? I mean, that is a blistering pace.
Okay, before we came here this weekend, the unofficial lap record was a 1:19.5. by Max Verstappen, a demo run, it has to be said, in the RB8 back in 2017. Well, he's just gone 10 seconds quicker than that.
No, this is phenomenal, his pace and confidence. I mean, you could see it, how he was balancing the car with that light oversteer into the corners. Magical. Yeah, and you'll see Perez as well. He will be miles away from that in exactly the same car.
Yeah, the car wasn't stuck to the ground, though, was it?
I guess last sector won't get any better than that in terms of a tow.
No, guess not.
As you picked up, Nico, they planned it absolutely perfectly. He didn't need the tow for any help, but just in case.
But the cars aren't, as I said, they're not stuck to the track, you know what I mean? They are dancing around, and it's good to see the rear moving, kicking up a bit of dust here and there. Lovely to watch out on track.
So whilst Verstappen dancing around with delight, his teammate Sergio Perez goes 4th fastest, 9/10 off Max Verstappen's pace.
Isn't that unbelievable? I mean, Perez, he was your teammate, Jensen. He knows how to drive a racing car.
Yeah,
right?
He's quick.
He is quick,
especially in qualifying.
And he can, I mean, he's 9/10 off in exactly the same car.
And meanwhile, Lewis Hamilton 7/10 off the pace, and you were watching his lap in a bit of detail. Where is he losing out to Max Verstappen? Anthony Davidson at Sky Race Control.
Yeah, so listening to Bono on the engineer's side, saying to Lewis that you're losing out in turn 3, both your entry and the exit. So a lot of time to be found on that particular corner.
It's not to be lost on that particular corner.
It's also his first proper run, isn't it, on a new set of tyres? These guys have had 2 other runs to really practice. So he will find a lot more pace.
Bottas is now starting another push lap, another flying lap. We're watching Charles Leclerc at the moment on the soft tyres. Now Leclerc was the quickest man yesterday, but Ferrari at the moment have, well, one car waiting to go back to the garage. Carlos Sainz crashing at turn 3, and Charles Leclerc not setting any green, personal best, or purple, overall best sectors on this particular lap. Their pace relative to yesterday is still good, but not good enough, and he ends up 1.5 seconds off the pace.
Yeah, it looks like the Mercedes and the Red Bull have maybe turned it up a little bit for this last run, whereas Ferrari have been running points the whole time.
And we did think Lance Stroll could be an unlikely candidate to watch out for, maybe for a top 6 in qualifying. He showed glimpses of good pace yesterday as well, and he goes 7th fastest on his latest lap at 1.2 seconds behind Verstappen.
It's pretty good, just in front of his teammate Seb.
Get the feeling Lance Stroll rather enjoys this circuit. Has gone very well here in the past in the junior formula. Knows where to run wide. They're going to have to fill that little divot in at some stage. Otherwise, it's going to be like a 0.5 metre drop on the outside of that curve.
They won't go there then, though, will they?
No, they will not. Meanwhile, Robert Kubica on the soft tyres continues onwards on this latest lap, and he is ahead of both Hasses at the moment, Schumacher and Mazepin, and only a 10th behind Yuki Tsunoda in the AlphaTauri. As he crosses the line with this latest lap, stays 18th fastest and doesn't improve on his best time of a 1:12.1. You get 10th off Tsunoda. I know Tsunoda's the rookie, but at least he's had more experience during the course of this year in these 2021 cars.
It's all good comparing him against Tsunoda, but I think Giovinazzi is the one who's in the same equipment, so he's 8/10 off Giovinazzi. Hopefully a bit closer in qualifying, and that last 0.5 second is normally the tricky part, but he'll be hoping for a bit more than that.
Nico, thank you very much indeed. You've got to go back and see Mr. Lazenby now in the paddock. We'll hear from you at the end of this FP3 session.
He's got a wobbly mirror.
He has got a wobbly mirror.
I don't know if that's normal, but it doesn't look it to me.
He's not going to see much out of that, is he, Mick Schumacher? He's strengthening somewhat. Anthony Davidson at Sky Race Control has more info for us. Anthony.
Yeah, just talking about Robert Kubica there and where he needed to find time. Been listening to their radio. There's a moment there through the gravel for Schumacher. We've seen this from many Formula 3 drivers, running straight through there, bringing a whole load of gravel onto the circuit. A sign that he's definitely pushing, but a bit more gravel on the track. Just checking that wobbly mirror to see if anyone's coming up behind him. if there was ever a car where you needed really good mirrors, it would be that one. You don't want them wobbling around. Here we go, Brian on board with him. I think it's just the rear that gets away from him initially on turn-in. Yeah, he hasn't got the confidence to turn in.
He was on the curb a little bit, wasn't he?
A little bit as well, yeah, wouldn't have helped. But yeah, sorry, going back to the Kubica chat, the engineer was passing on information where he's losing time.
Massive tailwind there.
It's good for that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Fade me up, fade me down.
Right, go on.
So yeah, Kubica's losing time. Turn 3 and turn 1, he's losing 3/10 in turn 1 and 4/10 in turn 3.
So then he's as quick as his teammate if he gets those two right.
Only 2 corners.
2 corners, easy. And then they seem really easy, those corners as well.
Gasly next across the line 10. I'll tell you what I would say about that chicane. We saw it in the F3 race today. A couple of cars went off on the opening lap or the second lap. Rejoining the track when there's lots of cars around them is not easy, because you're almost, you can't avoid going back onto the racing line at a very slow speed there.
Well, and they're also small cars compared to a Formula 1 car. Formula cars these days are massive. They're like an American pickup truck. They actually are in terms of their length, aren't they?
They certainly are. Ted, down to you.
Yeah, so Lewis Hamilton asking and getting told where he's losing time, both to his teammate and to Max Verstappen. We didn't get to hear on the team radio feed whether he said, well, I can find that time, or whether he might conclude that, well, I can't find that time. But they will try. They've got a bit of time before qualifying. They will try. But yeah, very difficult to see where they're going to find that amount of time. It's quite blowy and blustery down here, Crosby, now. Just at the end of the pit lane. Wind's really picking up. I wonder whether that will have an effect on anything.
I think it will. I think we're by the sea. The wind always plays a part when you're by the sea. Yards from the North Sea here. None of us want to go for a paddle because it's freezing cold on that beach.
Yes. There goes the other Ferrari.
Almost heading off to the beach, but if you go off early enough at that chicane, there is that access road which the drivers are meant to use. The trouble is, if you're in the gravel, you can't get back to the access road.
Yeah, and getting back on the track, as you saw there, is not easy because it's a 90-degree angle. Yeah. You actually go across the model, of course. But it's interesting to see it's great to see that from 5th down to 9th, there's only 2/10, just over 2/10, which is good. I think we're going to have an exciting qualifying session.
We're going to get traffic in Q1, we think. We anticipate.
We know.
And we're going to get a very, very competitive end to Q2. Lots of drivers doing this. Running wide, locking up as they try and push just a bit too hard.
I know the two Altaros are offline there, but it definitely catches your eye.
The thing is that they are staying in the line of the apex. I can't see the apex when they let you pass like this.
You're some sort of mystic.
I just did it for 17 years.
Which lottery numbers should I be choosing this evening?
22.
Always have 22. I prefer 42%. Qualifying pace, Verstappen fastest. Really? We like this qualifying pace graphic. We don't need that to tell us how fast Max Verstappen is. But if you correct it overall, there is less of a gap to Valtteri Bottas. Nicholas Latifi down in where's Latifi in 12th place, a little bit lower down. Once you take car data analysis into consideration, track evolution, wind speeds at the time, historical data, blah blah blah, a lot of things go into that. Hamilton 7/10 off the pace, he's about 8/10 off the pace on the timings. Sergio Perez still 9/10 back when you take everything into consideration, and that is not what Sergio Perez would want to see, because he'd like some correcting factors to put him a bit closer to his teammate.
Exactly, he's hoping for this graph here to be the other way up. Yeah. But no, it's not easy for him, and as a lot of people have found with this record car. Last year, but it's really not easy, and I think if you don't have that confidence under braking, you just can't get the time out of it like Max. But it's also the same over at McLaren with Norris and Ricciardo. He hasn't got that confidence under braking, and it's costing him a lot of time. Whether it will come or not this year, I don't know.
Daniel Ricciardo 11th fastest and Lando Norris 6th fastest at the moment, and they're separated by about 0.2 of a second. There is less than half a minute to go in this session. Why are all these cars coming out onto the track, you might be wondering? Because they'll do practice starts on the grid, and also this gives Max Verstappen a chance for a little lap of honour. I dare say there will be more noise being generated if this lap of honour gets replicated at the end of 72 laps on Sunday afternoon. and that's what he goes into qualifying with. Plenty of sets of tyres, 6 soft tyres, and medium tyres as well. We've got a set of hard tyres. Do you expect to see him in Q2, Jensen, going out on a medium tyre? Is that the better starting tyre? Because he's got the pace.
I don't really think they need to. These cars seem to be holding on, so it'll be interesting to see which direction they take, but I don't think they will. These starts are really interesting because yesterday we saw in FP2 so many marbles on the track going across the start-finish line. So the guys starting on the right-hand side, you're not really getting a representative, pull away. The guys on the left were. Today it seems a lot cleaner, so they're probably going to try the right-hand side. They're trying to find the grip difference from left to right as well for all the strategists and what have you. So very important start to practice today.
Laps completed. Yuki Tsunoda 28 laps in that session. Lewis Hamilton put in 21, needing to get more mileage on this circuit after losing pretty much his entire session yesterday. And as Jensen and Nico were saying, his pace, don't be surprised to see him 8/10 off the pace because they're not really pushing out and out in this particular session because they've got a lot of catch-up work to do.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of catch-up work to do. I'm just looking at the speeds. The third sector speed trap, Verstappen, 3:16, 5 kilometers quicker than anyone. But we know when that happened. That was the end of his time lapse. So thank you very much, Checo Perez.
Yeah, there's not many places to give a toe here, but out of that final corner, if you can get it, qualifying is going to be that tight. It's rather handy, but don't expect to see that come qualifying, as Verstappen does make his way out of that final turn to take up a place. Where's he going to go? Is he going to put that car on pole, where he probably expects to be starting this race on Sunday, and where he expects to be winning qualifying a little later on this afternoon?
He'll have it in his ear where, if they can actually do that now, but he'll have it in his ear where to start from, because they do both sides of the grid normally. Here we go.
Charles for a few photos as he actually remains stationary for a couple of moments. Let's have a look at this start.
Doesn't really get much better, does it, than that?
We are happy with that.
But there's no pressure on you at this point. That's the difference from a real start. When the lights are going out, at the start of the Grand Prix, there's definitely a lot more nerves and adrenaline, which does change things.
So that is, without doubt, the fastest car and the one that they've got to catch. The first Dutchman to race at a Dutch Grand Prix since Jan Lammers in 1982. Lammers that day driving a Theodore. Love Theodore, one of my favourite names.
It is nice.
Theodore, fantastic. Well, Verstappen in a Red Bull looks pretty good to the crowd that are here today as well. And looking a very, very good bet for pole. What have Mercedes got then to claw back the advantage that Red Bull have got at the moment?